everybody. I'm Tom Davis with Signpost, and I'm thrilled to sit down with our guest, Roland Ligtenberg, today. We're here to talk about home service pros and how they can get more out of their jobs and increase the value of each customer. Roland, I'm really excited to chat with you because I know you've got a really interesting background, really curious to understand, how Housecall Pro came about and what the background is there. But as always, we've got ourselves a little bit of a tradition. If you had to have that one topping that you would never put on any piece of pizza, what is it?
Actually, the answer is I would try anything once. So for me, there's never anything I will try. Some people are like, oh, anchovies or some other fun stuff. Like I'll try it all. Pizza's pizza, and it's all good to me.
I 100% agree with you, man. It's bread, it's cheese, it's tasty toppings. You can't go
Good.
wrong with it all.
That's
But
right.
tell us a bit about your background, man. How did you get into the home service space, and what's the background with House Call Pro?
Sure. Yeah. For myself personally, to get through college, I ran a painting business during the summer months. So I actually ran it year round, but I did the painting during the summer parts of the year, and that paid for college. So it's a different kind of home service business than a lot of our pros, which are a lot of like HVAC, plumbers, electrical. We do have some painters as well,
Yeah.
but that was back in college. So after graduating, did a stint at a company called Qualcomm where I got to meet my co-founders, where we inevitably left Qualcomm and started Housecall Pro. And our mission was really to connect homeowners with trusted local service professionals back in the day when a lot of apps were bubbling up that were Uber 4X. And
Yeah.
so what we quickly found out was that A, building a marketplace is very difficult, but B, a lot of the pros, none of them had any kind of software to help them run their business. And so we
Right.
thought, hey, wow, that's a huge opportunity. Why don't we go build them some sort of tool that can help them manage their business from the back of their pocket?
Got it. So you were trying to make the pen and paper obsolete, huh?
That's true, and still a majority of the people joining House Call Pro are still coming from pen and paper or some kind of cobbled together system. They might be using Square with Google Calendar and maybe
Yeah.
with Mailchimp, and they try to like hook them all up together, and they have got some agency that they found at their local BNI chapter or something, and so. Whether it's pen and paper or something kind of cobbled together, we just offer a more holistic suite of tools for them to help run their business.
Right on. Well, we are here to talk today about kind of upselling, cross-selling. So we're talking about running the business, managing your customers more effectively. So I kind of want to jump into it here. And we know that to your point, you mentioned hiring an agency or might have some systems cobbled together. We know that getting new customers can take a lot of time and effort. And it can oftentimes be for this small job that may not be worth it, right? So I'm kind of curious to know, like, how do you get customers that can pay out of pocket on big jobs? How do you upsell from those low ball customers and ultimately kind of drive into those high value pieces? So, what we're here to talk about today is those ways that people can do that. So,
Sure.
really at a nutshell, who can do this? Are there certain kinds of home service pros that this only applies to? Can the average Joe or the average Jane kind of take these small business opportunities and really try to upsell and increase that ticket item?
Yeah, I would just say, this is definitely for everybody. And there's like about five different questions you asked there. And all of them are like, I could spend an hour talking about each one of those. But I would say in general, this kind of stuff applies to any kind of home service company. So whether you are an HVAC or a home cleaner or a single, owner operator to multi-truck kind of a business.
Yeah.
But I would say, obviously, it's much easier to retain and make revenue from existing clients and referrals rather than getting net new customers from some other kind of an acquisition channel. So the biggest thing is to kind of focus on the retention piece. And I would say, you mentioned kind of like low ball customers. You only get low ball customers if you do a job with them. And so what you want to do is you want to qualify, the reason why you charge what you charge so that the customers that are low ball customers do not become your customers because they are very hard to upsell and they don't see the value in what you're doing. You're going to spend a lot of time and effort on that and not get the return on investment off of them when you could be working with customers that see the value that you provide and would happily not necessarily be upsold, but you're offering them a suite of services and things that maybe they hadn't even considered or knew that you offered as a business. And
Right.
so those are tips and tricks for any kind of a business that they can kind of implement in day one.
I love it. All right, so you called out a couple key themes there that we're going to talk about a little bit later in the show. Obviously, this notion of retaining customers, that's that kind of 80-20 rule as well. And then as well, this notion of qualifications. So I kind of want to lean into that one a little bit because, you know, what is that kind of intentional and strategic way that people can build out maybe uh, a profile of what this kind of qualified customer might look like?
So the biggest thing that you need to start before you ask yourself, like, what is a qualified customer, is you should look back at your current customers and say, okay, what's kind of the persona? What's the demographic? Where are they? Who are they? Where do they spend their day? Who are their friends? How do they make purchasing decisions? So before you try to build even your ideal customer profile, cheat and look at your current customer base, and look at who they are. Now, you
Yeah,
might say, oh, Roland, well, I don't like the customers that I currently have. I want to target a higher demographic and other things. And that's okay. You can definitely head in that direction. But I'd say the first thing to do is take a look at who's currently in your database and see where are they living. Are there zip codes that jump out at you? Are there any similarities or trends that kind of pop out when you're taking a look at them? So the biggest thing is take a look at what you already got before you start trying to build something brand new from scratch. If you're starting brand new and it's a brand new business, take a look at, what are the types of customers you think you're going to want? What are the areas that they live in? Are they single head of household, dual head of household? Do they make a certain AGI, adjusted gross income? Where do they spend the majority of their time? So those are kind of the things I first look at when I'm trying to establish what that ideal customer persona or profile is.
got it. So, what are some of the tools that you're using to identify that? You mentioned obviously Housecall Pro is created to kind of compete with the hodgepodge component to it. Is it just a matter of Googling a bunch and saying a lot of my customers are in this zip code? What is the average income? Are they married, dual kids, whatever it may be? Like, what are kind of some of those general search terms for people that might not know this?
Yeah, so there's great census data on all of this. And so I'd say go look online for .gov sites that contain a lot of census data by zip. And then another great tool is when you're looking at doing EDDM, which is every door direct mail, they have really interesting insights there and what types of folks are on what types of routes. And those maybe cross a couple different zip codes, or they might just be contained within one zip code. But there's a lot of great public data sets that are free that are out there that you can start to leverage to get access to this data. There's a lot of other data brokers that are out there as well that you can kind of either buy data from if you give them a data set, and they can append your data with extra data if you'd like to go super deep down. But generically, you can load up your database of email addresses even into Google's plotter, and you can start to see trends just off of that. So there's a bunch of easy, free to use tools. I guess Excel is not really free, but Google Sheets is, and you could easily just take all of your jobs that you've done for a certain amount of time, and then you can put a plot. Well, what's the highest, most recurring zip codes that pop up? Just take that one little piece of data. And so there's a lot of things that you can do for free that are publicly out there that you can either throw into Google, throw into Sheets, and run some queries on.
Right on. And you mentioned this phrase a moment ago, EDDM. Could you define that again?
So EDDM is every door direct mail, essentially, and the post office offers it as a way for you to distribute content via mail. A lot of times it's postcards, but it could be anything really. And what's interesting is if you think about the U.S. Post Office, they actually have to run routes to deliver mail. There's a reason why you see the same mailman over and over again. Why? Because you're on a certain route and that's his route. And so they've determined tracks and routes that are more commonly associated with certain common trends. There's a reason you're on that route. And you can see those if you were to go to the post office site. You can actually pull it up by zip. You can target it. You can do a whole bunch of stuff just for free, and you can actually capture a lot of those routes. And if you're in the early days of building a business, you can quickly figure out if you were to go door to door, even door knocking. I used to do a lot of door knocking back when I was running my painting business.
Yeah.
But if you go door to door, if you just hang in flyers, or you're hiring that high school student to drop off some flyers, use their routes, because guess what? They do it every day. They've already optimized it. Don't make something up from scratch.
That is good to know. I'm glad you called that out because I had that same job in college of going and doing the door-to-door sales, and we were just using like a basic print atlas map, and it was chaos.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there, you heard it first, y'all. Use the publicly available route, save some money, make life
yeah.
easier for those high school kids that you're hiring out. So, all right, you mentioned, obviously the mail routes, zip codes. Do you recommend people that are looking at things like, seasonality of the jobs that they're hiring to find the ideal customer? Or is it a minimum job square foot or like a price point? Or are you generally recommending for people that are thinking about this notion of an upsell, cross sell to really just hone in on a zip code and a general income level?
It's not just necessarily that, because I would say, just because someone makes a lot of money or a little money doesn't necessarily determine what they're willing to pay for a service. So they
Yeah.
have to see a value in it. And so you have to build up that value to be able to command the prices that you set. And so there's a whole bunch of ways to show that value. One being, having a professional website. Two is having a professionally wrapped truck. Three is having professional, outfits, workwear that you're bringing to the door. So there's a whole bunch of different components that make up this perception of just brand and professionalism, which allows you to charge what you do, which is different than someone going to Craigslist and maybe finding a handyman for 20 bucks an hour to kind of dink around in the home. So
Yeah.
there's a reason why people will come to you for your service, but you need to command that by, having good branding out there, because you often find a lot of pros, they'll say that their homes that they visit that are the most expensive are usually the stingiest.
Yeah.
And the ones that are actually far more closer to aligned with like the middle class, the average middle class, they see more value in it because they really see, okay, I make X dollars an hour. Here's my budget. I know it would take me 30 hours to do this thing. So, I'll spend up to X to do it. So don't just say like, oh, I want to target the thing that has the highest AGI in a zip. And that's like the zip that I want. Because you may find that those are not the ones that will necessarily make you the most money.
Got it. Fair enough. So, we're talking about this notion of upselling, right? Value of customers. Like, what are some of those tools that you've got in your back pocket to help kind of measure the value of each customer in the job? I think, if I'm not mistaken, you guys have some functionality that helps with that. Yeah.
Yeah, so within Housecall Pro, you have, the notion of a customer lifetime value. And this is really important because if you're just looking at a one-time job and a one-time marketing expense, you're going to be missing out on what you should really be doing. So
Yeah.
inside of Housecall Pro, we have that within kind of the database because you can kind of take a look at that. But then also you can see within the client's profiles, are they repeating? What types of things are they buying? What are they not? How many of the folks in your database have you only done one job for? Those are great people that may not know some of the other services that you offer, that you may want to reach out to them either via email, or you might want to call them or text them or with their consent, or send them a postcard, etc., to make sure they know all the things that you offer. So within Housecall Pro, there's a couple of different ways that you can do that. And then obviously you can always export it as well to Excel to do a whole bunch of power pivoting. But you don't even need to be an Excel wizard to be able to get value out of it. Just works great out of the box.
I love it, man. All right. So once we've got a good understanding of kind of who these customers are and who's bringing in the highest revenue, what kind of jobs are most profitable, what's that next step for a contractor? How do they start to kind of codify all this?
Yeah, typically look at, sometimes companies will be, for example, they might be an HVAC company first, and then they will have added a plumbing division, or they may be a plumber that added HVAC, right? Or they may be a landscaper that partnered with a pool company, or it may be, a painter that also does some light handyman work. So think about the analogous kind of services that your business offers that make sense for the customer, and then make sure that the customer knows about them. So
Right.
you need to be able to show them, hey, here's what it does, but then how do you get a hold of them? How do you get that information to them? And Signpost definitely has some great tools as well that lets you go back and reach out to them. And that's part of the key to getting the upsell piece working, because if people don't know that you offer extra services, how do you expect to upsell them if they don't even know?
Yeah.
So that's the biggest, thing that you need to go solve for.
So you mentioned kind of this notion of like, I don't know, whether you're a pool cleaning company and you partner with uh, bug control company, or these kind of things that seem to be like really synergistic. I hate that phrase. I'm so sorry I just used that. How do you announce the partnership? Do you just try to sell on their behalf? Like, what's that kind of way to go about saying, we offer XYZ, but we partner with them, we get you a discount? Like, how do you recommend people do that? And then is there some sort of like rev share on the back end of that?
Sure. So I mean, typically, if you're doing like a partnership with another company, that's one way to do it. And simple way is after the end of the job, you can have a leave behind where you have all the companies that you recommend. So it's a simple, sheet of paper if you want, or you can do it digitally after each job. You can say, hey, Tom, since we work together, I just want you to know I've got some other people that are also in the home services space that offer a whole list of different things that you may or may not need for your house. But these are people that I trust. And if you like the quality of service that we had to offer, these are the same types of people that offer something at a similar level. And I would happily recommend them to you. And here's a referral list, and here's their information. And
Got
so
it.
if you have everybody within this group doing that same thing, or maybe it could be two services. It doesn't have to be a whole bunch of folks in it. It could just be, hey, here's here's someone else. There's a really easy way to, at the end of each job, it seems very organic, it's very authentic, and that just opens up the door just to a conversation to maybe more. Because what invariably happens is with a homeowner, once they trust you, then you're going to be their go-to resource for all kinds of things, and you want to be the company that can refer out other companies, so that way they always come to you for any need first, and you can determine,
Right.
oh, this is something that I can actually do versus, oh, okay, I'm going to refer it off to someone else.
So that goes back to kind of what we talked about, or at least hinted at rather at the beginning of the call, was that this notion of customer retention and the 80-20 rule. I've always heard it defined as that 20% of your best customers will always bring in 80% of your revenue. What are some of those ways? I'm thinking of the cross-selling piece of whether it be lawn maintenance and then bug spray or any of those kind of pairs that work together there. Like, what are those ways that you're going about by educating the customer to make sure that they're well aware of who you are about those services that you offer so that you become that trusted resource?
Yeah, so I say one really easy way is if you're using Housecall Pro, this is something I recommend everybody do. But after you're done rendering the service, obviously you're going to create an invoice for them for what you just did. And then what you also want to do is you never want to leave a home without doing another estimate. And so the way that it works is on that estimate, you say, hey, Tom, you know what? I know I didn't come out to do X, Y, Z, but
Yeah,
while I was doing some work, I went through here and I recommended, that you should check under the eaves because I see some cracking there. I actually also noticed one of the lights wasn't working, right? And so if you list off all the things that you think that you can A, either help with or B, send a referral to, what you just say, hey, look, I just left you an estimate. If you ever wanted to have these things done, feel free to give me a call back. But that way
yeah,
you're turning each one opportunity where you're right there in front of the client, you're educating them with something else that might be helpful that they may or not have known that they needed or wanted. And you let them know A, the price of it, and B, if it's not you, that you could refer someone, but leave that estimate after every single job. And so what's important to do here is they might not bite, and chances are they
right.
won't. But now all of a sudden, when the slow season hits, and we talked about this a little bit, or you had asked, what do you do during the high season? What do you do in low season? Low season, all of a sudden now you've got a whole bunch of estimates that you can follow through and go, hey, Tom, you know what? It's October now. I just want to let you know my summer schedule's actually starting to free up a little bit now that we're heading into fall. I'd left an estimate back when we did this job for you back in May. There are 4 things here, and I'm actually going to be in the neighborhood this next week. If you wanted to get them done, I'd be happy to do them. And because I'm in the neighborhood, give you the 10%, eco-friendly discount or,
Yeah.
previous customer discount or that kind of a thing. And so now all of a sudden you've got an entire database of potential jobs and dollars that you can go hunt, you can prospect, and you can go sales call against, you can do marketing against. And if you're doing this, you're turning one opportunity into many opportunities, and that's how you grow the business.
That's really interesting. This is the first time that anybody's mentioned that strategy to us. And I think that's incredibly awesome because, one, to your point, you're keeping the pipeline full, you're keeping the seasonality through and through. You're now a trusted advisor because you've maybe called out whatever that thing was that they might not been aware of. So you're educating the homeowner. And then to your point, you're the local trusted expert. They're going to call you to see who they should have it fixed, anyways. And to your point, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Homeowner, we can help fix that for you. We don't need to outsource it. So you're just keeping it all in house.
That's right. Yep.
Oh man, I love that. That is really cool. That is an awesome tip for folks to take home there. We talk a lot about how, customer perception, keeping people happy. I mean, what a great value add there. Just to say, I know that we brought out for one job, but we want to just make sure that you're totally taken care of here. I'm curious. Do you recommend people ask for referrals for people if they do have those one or two homeowners that absolutely love them? How do you turn that existing happy customer into other opportunities?
Yeah, I'd say the best way is always to give, and naturally things will just happen. So, for example, if there's a customer that you did a really great job for, or they're saying, "Hey, I'd like to refer you," empower them to help refer you. So, what I mean by this is give them $50 gift cards that they can give to any one of their friends, or maybe at the PTA, or maybe at the soccer, the soccer game, or maybe wherever they happen to be. So, empower them with gift cards. And you may think, well, oh my gosh, now I'm spending all this money, I'm giving all these gift cards. What you have to remember is that any kind of gift card you can write off as a marketing expense. And so you're not going to get taxed on any of that piece. And so, in addition, when people, say, hey, I got this gift card from such and such, I heard you did a good job for them. Here's this, I want to use this gift card. Great. You can always build that into your pricing as well in the future. If you know that you're going to be doing maybe a small job, and you know you're going to get a much bigger job later, who cares? That's great. It's so much cheaper to do something like that. And now all of a sudden you have someone that's referring you that, by the way, if they paid a good amount for what you offered, a fair value, they will also tell their friends, hey, you know what? Roland's not cheap, but he's really good. Well, guess
Yeah.
what? If it comes from a recommended source and it's my buddy that's saying that, I don't care how much it really costs. I just want to know the job is done right. And I'm happy paying for quality. And so that's why it's really important to screen your first clients for those good ones, because you don't want to get referrals from customers that aren't good customers, because they will also refer you not so good customers. So step one, empower your great customers with tools and gifts, right? Like how can you do that? And then step two is make sure that the people that you're empowering are actually the types of people who you'd want to get more jobs from, or they're friends of a similar nature.
Yeah, yeah, I love it, man. That's really cool. All right, so I'm kind of curious to know as well, like we're talking about having that great customer, that 80/20 rule, that retention piece, short of just asking for a referral or empowering them, say with gift cards like you recommended and building that into your price structure. What are some of those other ways that people remarket to keep them top of mind? Is it, calling on a regular basis to touch base? Are you automating the marketing component? What are those other ways to make sure that not only are you staying top of mind throughout the season, but they're also, again, more willing to refer you or leave you these public reviews online to help you grow that local business?
Yeah, I mean, I think reviews are obviously really important, and you should be asking every single time, and not just in person, but following up with emails and texts and things like that after the job is done. And it's not necessarily, you have to remember that people won't leave you a review right away because they didn't like you. It's just they're busy. They have lives, just like you have lives, And so for me, whenever I write a review, I try to be really thoughtful about it, and it takes me a little bit to come up with what I'm going to write. I'm not just going to click 5 star and leave no comments. And by the way, you want comments that actually have a lot of unique um, characters in it, unique words, have them put in the location in which they service, right? All these things help from an SEO perspective, especially if you're doing something on Google reviews. But
Right.
I would say from a remarketing aspect, you need to stay in touch with your customers at least 7 times every single year. So what are those 7 touches going to look like? Could be an email, could be a phone call, could be a text, could be a postcard, could be a ringless voicemail. There's all kinds of different things that you should be doing to stay in touch with the customer, but not necessarily to sell stuff. Because if you're just saying like, oh, okay, now I got this deal and now this deal, people get tired of those specials.
Yeah.
They know that you're around, and if you do a good job, they'll come back to you anyways. So what you
Right.
really want to do is offer them something of value. So maybe on the East Coast, by September, here's the 5 step checklist for hurricane protection for your home. Before you leave your summer home, make sure the windows are closed and the water's shut off, and whatever those things are. So if you can give some value, those things are helpful. And so if you keep those on a recurring basis and built in, and those just happen seasonally, that's great. That's awesome. You want to be doing those things. Don't just offer a deal every single time and that's what you consider your remarketing, because at some point someone will probably just tune you out and you'll lose that customer.
I love that you're calling that out, man. Yeah, it's we all get so tired of getting just deal after deal after deal, and you got to make sure that you are providing that value and educating the homeowner. It's reflective of the brand, the professionalism, and then to your point, right? There's that perceived value where they want to pay more.
Yep, that's right.
I love it, man. All right, guys. Well, Roland, it's been a lot of fun chatting with y'all. Really interested in the points that you shared. I want to thank you for coming out today and help educate our users around how to upsell and maybe find that more valuable customer, as you mentioned. So I'm going to do a quick kind of recap here on the things that I think are really fascinating that you mentioned out is one, making sure that you're qualifying the right jobs, right? It's not a matter of upselling to a higher price point if you're always going to be continually getting that lesser value job because that person is probably not going to pay that money, right? Two is making sure that you're leveraging something like the everyday direct mailer, which is that new phrase that I learned, so that you're maybe optimizing routes if you are doing handouts or mailers, things along those lines. Obviously, and most importantly, this 80/20 retention rule, making sure that you're providing that value to your existing clients, making sure they're serviced as well, being educated to be the best they can, and then as well as Roland called out, make sure you're supporting them so they can share the love that they feel with you, right? You did a great job. As Roland said, it might be a little pricey, but you're coming highly recommended from a buddy. They're going to be more likely to buy. Make sure you're empowering to recommend you to help get that deal. And then, as always, just making sure that as you called out, you've got those 7 touch points throughout the year, so that you can educate them, you can provide that long term value versus just kind of a gimmick sales piece. we're going to do our best to summarize it, y'all. So for everybody that's following along, go ahead and click the link down in the description. We're going to have an infographic available on a lot of awesome pro tips that Roland and the marketing team over at Housecall Pro has helped put together. So hopefully you can apply those to your business. As always, if you love it, subscribe for the content. Roland, anything else you want to share with our viewers?
Yeah, if you guys are interested or if you're curious about Housecall Pro and you're using Signpost, the integration is great. If you wanted to take a look and get a demo, you can always go to housecallpro.com/signpost. We got a deal for all Signpost users. And when the two main communication methods are talking to one another, they're integrated. It's much more powerful because things become a lot more automated. Those 7 touch points that we talked about today can be a lot easier to do with the two things talking to one another. So go ahead and take a look. If you're interested in a demo, we got a deal for you guys. Thanks for having me on, Tom. And as always, thanks so much, pros. Hit me up on social media if you have any questions.
Yeah, definitely as well. The Housecall Pro network on Facebook is phenomenal. So check it out if you haven't already joined. And Roland, we appreciate the time.
Thanks so much.